Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through dark times. My special guest has survived, get this, 44 overdoses and a near fatal brain injury. He's now a neuroscience-based transformation expert who, with his unique blend approach of cutting-edge neuroscience with ancient healing principles, has helped over 4,000 people break free totally from burnout and limiting beliefs. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Kyle Anthony Trautmann to the show. Kyle, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, man? It's great to have you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Awesome introduction. I appreciate that. But yeah, life is good, man. God is great.
Oh, God is great. And life is good in both forms. Thank you so much, Kyle. We're excited to have you here. And I have to ask, Kyle, man, when I think of 44 overdoses, my gosh, two questions immediately come to mind. Okay. And if you can just kind of set the stage for us with these two questions that I have for the listeners' benefit. Number one, I hope when I ask this, I'm not stating the obvious, but was the near fatal brain injury a manifestation of the overdoses? And number two, at a high level, what did or does 44 overdoses look like in your eyes having experienced it?
Oh, man. I mean, first off, that first question is a phenomenal question. You can say cause and effect just by that law. Eventually, to answer the first question, on a metaphysical, more spiritual level, absolutely. On a physical level, I was diagnosed with a deep vein thrombosis. It was complications from a massage, and I had to get put on emergency blood thinners. And there was a complications with that, which actually promoted a small aneurysm, which is the way that I found out that I had the brain injury itself.
Right.
So that was more of like the physical manifestation specifically from those complications.
Right.
But you can definitely say that the brain injury in its metaphysical form was definitely a effect of the cause due to the substance abuse disorder. But 44 overdoses, and that's just the like clinically registered. There's so much more behind that, obviously, as you can imagine.
Wow. Yeah.
But what it looks like through the eyes is just how much you have to reflect on how an individual or a soul at that time just was crying out for help. The individual just programmed within that limited amount of beliefs. Those 44 overdoses were registered between ages of 17 and 28. I'm 35 now. Okay. So I have a nice distance from that.
Yeah.
But at that time, it's just how much a child essentially is still developing hated himself essentially.
Wow.
And that was really the precursors to really kind of how I got into not only just my field currently, but also just my passion for allowing this story of sorts, because it's not my story personally anymore.
Right.
But that story can definitely help somebody else get out of anything they're really in.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think your story is serves dual purpose in my view, and for one, I believe it serves as a type of fuel to fuel you as motivation for helping others transform. For giving people the help that you were looking for or you needed when you had the substance abuse or the addiction. So it could be that fuel, I believe, and I also believe that it's to help other people. They hear the story and they realize, well, if it happened to him and he can turn it around, I can do the same thing, and it gives them that inspiration that inspiration as well. And so, I want to ask you something here, Kyle. Um, we In the introduction, we kind of focused on limiting beliefs and burnout. So,
Mm.
um, someone who was crying out for help when you were younger, right? Um, and and I believe there's always a sense of, maybe as a young child, healthy validation as a child is trying to learn their way through, through navigating and interacting with people and loved ones and so forth. But was part of hating yourself, was that part of, were there any limiting beliefs that kinda restricted you from, like, where you what potential you thought you had, or where you thought or believe you could go? I mean, did you have limiting beliefs or any kind of burnout that kinda led down that road?
Yeah, the burnout in itself is outside of the medical, condition that
Yeah,
it actually has some different distinctions behind just like the core belief aspect, but for sure, yeah. I mean, I was dead set on being a pro baseball player,
yeah,
and my senior year in high school, it just tanked. I ended up getting injured, got hooked on drugs,
yeah,
and yeah, and that dream slowly became not only just non-existent, it became ultimately my detriment because that was my entire identity, was just
right,
playing baseball. It's all I knew since
yeah,
4 years old. And when you take, a 17, 18-year-old kid that really doesn't know himself, really doesn't know the world, has only been, crowded, by what's been happening within the household, also within your school system, also the historical influences
yeah,
of people that have been around you. The biggest notions of I am not worthy, not valuable, definitely not loved, and definitely not appreciated or supported.
mm,
We go through in our practice with people one-to-ones, and then also within our community offer a process called a core belief assessment. It's about 38 to 39 different core beliefs that really kind of saturate your lie identity. And something
right,
beautiful that I adopted from Myron Golden is that identity from the past that hasn't opened up to what we call
mm,
potential, but essentially who you are as God intended. It's just a bunch of lies because it's just been casted down upon you that you've accepted because you've been in a state of vulnerability. And yeah, I mean everything. I'm weak. I'm not capable. I'm a victim. Like, why did God
yeah,
do this to me? Like, I have all this talent, blah blah. I'm
yeah,
like, you don't know anything at that age of 17, 18, regardless of how much schooling you've gone through, as you're extremely underdeveloped on an emotional side, but also just on a brain concept too. So for
right,
me, leaning into just substance abuse, just substances in general, was my ability to feel connected to something other than the pain of losing that identity of being a baseball player. So yeah, I mean, there's a myriad of core beliefs at that time, and it's a beautiful reflective point, and I love just the notion of your podcast name, The Road to Rediscovery, which is just the road of life. Essentially, you're rediscovering yourself every time you are uprooting any type of core belief that is promoting this lie that is on top of your identity, therefore that term lie identity. So I went through a litany of different core beliefs, but to look back on it now, it's like, what a blessing, what an honor to go through that.
yeah, and, it takes a lot of transparency and bravery and, actual humility
Mm.
to reflect back on that time and say, "Hey, what a blessing," because a lot of
Yeah,
that
to
may have
have
been
gratitude.
unpleasant. There's
Mm.
some tremendous amount of gratitude and humility, right? To say, "Hey, that was not very pleasant, and
Mm.
I had no clue what I was doing, what I was thinking. I made some bad choices, but I'm blessed that it happened because it's part of who I am today and where I am today," right? Like you said, with the road to rediscovery, you are rediscovering certain facets of yourself in your life in a different mindset, in a different mind frame, and that's where that rediscovery comes in for sure. So I want to thank you for clarifying that in your journey, the
Absolutely.
things that you were battling with for sure, Kyle. And so, and you may have touched it on this in your explanation, but just wanted to know, when it comes to limiting beliefs and burnout, okay, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, are they?
Mm,
Can one result in the other? I mean, I'm thinking in my head that if I had a limiting belief that I believed of myself,
mm,
whether it was a societal pressure, such as, I hate to say it, but maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago, racism, right?
sure.
You know, there could be parts of society that would place a limiting belief on myself as an African American that
Mm,
I can only get so far in life. I can only attain so much. And so if I subscribe to that and
mm,
believe that,
yeah.
then from a comfort perspective, I'm just going to stay put where I am. And if I stay put where I am too long, then the burnout could come. In my mind, that's kind of like how my brain is thinking. But can you share some insight for the listeners with the work that you're doing and
Mm,
helping people overcome burnout and limiting beliefs?
yeah.
Are they mutually exclusive, or can one be an impact to the other?
Oh, I mean, mutually exclusive in some aspects,
Yeah.
but also very, very tied because our
Okay.
process that we teach, known as energy literacy,
Hmm.
is really ultimately looking at all aspects of how energy is produced. Like we look at the atomic level, what is the observation? We're looking more so on the cellular level, how is that actually, on a biological component? How is that
Yeah.
promoting to the cell's voltage? How much electricity is moving through your being? But what I love that you're alluding to on the societal conditioning, the conditioning specifically of societal paradigms, is going to cap your thought process until that expansion is allowed. So when you look at just the laws of thermodynamics of just how energy has to move, if you don't fundamentally move, if you feel isolated, if you feel that you are capsized specifically by the things and the influences around you, entropy starts to drastically go up. And that's just chaos and disorder through the being. And then
Yeah.
you'll naturally go into a traumatic response, whether that's freezing, whether that's, running, whether that is trying to fight a system.
Revolting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when you start to pay attention to just the laws of nature, you can understand a little bit how to gravitate towards how your mind and ultimately your heart set has to be moved through. And for me, we really kind of burn through, and words are perfect for this because utilizing that burns, no pun intended, but
Yeah.
burning through the myth of burnout, where it's just really finding alignment with not only just a purpose that you have or a process, because a lot of people that have experienced burnout, they're just out of alignment, specifically what would they're put here to do, right? So we have to take people through a massively transformative process so they can be enlightened by actually going through and delivering a purpose. And one of my favorite breakdowns is this formula, and you can find it in Genesis, the first chapter in 27:28. You have a 5-point command, right? That God tells you. It's essentially, excuse me, be, do, and then have, right?
Mm,
Be fruitful,
yeah.
right? Do multiply, do replenish, do subdue, and have dominion, essentially, right? So
Yes.
God, right, in the neuroscience aspect, how I've alluded that beautiful notion is guidance on deliverance, right?
Right.
So once you're delivered in that notion of guidance, then you can pursue what it means to become. And then as you become, then you can start to focus on the doing. So a lot of people are just doing stuff without knowing who they are,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that in itself is called a values conflict, is one of the 6 burnout triggers that we go through within our inventory that we teach our students and clients. You have to really be so astute in who you are and so keen on that development and that insatiable desire for growing, that the doing can be a byproduct of who you become. Therefore, burnout doesn't even actually exist, because when you really start to align yourself within that purpose, that is
Ah,
the biggest framework of
okay.
energy literacy moving through those channels. And obviously we go into deeper detail within our frameworks and also the foundational teachings. But the biggest aspect of understanding who you are as a quote unquote limited being,
Yeah.
right, is going to now promote exactly what you do, because your beliefs are the precursors to your behaviors. It's pretty
And
simple.
I see.
Pretty
And that's
simple.
foundational. You have to do the be
100%.
first.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
I got you. And
Yeah.
and I guess theoretically, when you have that rock solid and you going on to do,
Mhm.
then as you said, limiting beliefs wouldn't exist.
Truth. Truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm digging this, and
It's a
it matters.
beautiful feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a beautiful feedback loop. My goodness. And so I can see this working together quite yeah, quite beautifully. So um in light of that, okay, you mentioned the energy literacy, and thank you
Mm,
for explaining that energy literacy. One other thing that that I was reading about you that really kind of fascinated me, and I guess it comes part and parcel with energy literacy. If you could just give us a brief synopsis on what this is, um, really intrigued by cognitive recalibration.
mm.
It sounds like there's some degree of alignment that you're doing in that. But can you kind of break that down for us at a high level for the listeners?
No, absolutely. So this is my favorite question is because you have three base principles in neuroscience. One says Hebbian learning. Hebbian learning is very, very simple.
That's right.
As you continuously repeat things, neurons that fire together wire together. So it's just the law
Hmm.
of repetition. Very, very simple. I'm just getting chills talking about it. This is how geeked out I get. And then the second aspect is what we teach from a holonomic standpoint, which is called the law of association. So how we pick up 3D depictions in our reality and associate bioenergetically our emotions to them is
Yes.
how we are going to precede the energy that we have towards the behaviors that we are actually distributing to the world. And then
Okay.
the third is the window of reconsolidation. And the window of reconsolidation says you have a small little framework. Once the nervous system is fully safe to release a charge from an old memory, you can literally assign a proper and new meaning to that memory. And you have 3 to 6 hours post doing that for everything to integrate and solidify. So in energy literacy, we have to go through a simple formula where we have to observe our patterns, right? And then we have to understand what emotions from those observable patterns are coming up or still lodged within us. And
Yeah.
then we also have to look at our decisions, right? What are our fatigue factors? It's the masks that you're wearing. You know, how much BS are you telling yourself throughout the
Right.
day?
Right.
Right? How many decisions do you have to make? Because on average, we make 268 thought decisions on just what we're going to eat throughout the day, which is
Yeah.
insane amount of energy and amplitude that has to go through the being.
Yeah.
And then also essentially how you're setting yourself up from a time standpoint, right? Like how are you redistributing your time in association to your energy? So the beautiful part about those three principles is that if we can take care of the memory, which is the body, right? What's being held within the body, there is a
Yeah.
liberation of energy. So the flow can naturally move and course through the nervous system and
Yeah.
accentuate the cells. Then you get to add on the beautiful things. We also do this within our frameworks as well, teaching the nutrition, teaching the essentials that you need for proper voltage for the cells to really amplify your life. Because if your cells are fully in a high gradients, a high oscillation, a high electrical voltage, there is no disease orientation. There's just,
Mm.
it's not possible. So if
Mhm.
you're constantly bumping out adenosine triphosphate, ATP, our molecular structure of our biological currency, there is no fundamental way that you can actually get sick, right? So
Mm.
the beautiful part about explaining energy literacy is we have to see it top down and bottom up. We can't
Right.
just see it from a therapeutic approach because
Right.
that's talking about top down,
Yeah.
right? It's just simply being like, hey, what are the issues that I'm going through? Can I accentuate on a consistent basis what my problems are? But
Yeah.
then you also get into a lock and loop on that with the verbal overshadowing effect, which means you just keep talking about certain things that are going on or
Yes.
negative things or things even to a therapist. It actually amplifies 4 to 8 times more of that negativity to come back to you. So it's
Yes.
really about the energy literacy isn't so much about appropriating the person just from a mindset or an emotional standpoint. It's really looking at where a person is from all levels of energy so that amplitude can be there so you can live a beautiful life. Like you can really live an electrical life essentially. So bringing that out to people is really understanding if you are literate, just like you would be in finances, right? Just like you would
Yeah.
be in any other aspect. If you know how to be literate in energy production, energy harmonization, and also energy expansion,
Yeah.
there's no doubt that you're going to have an amazing life.
That's absolutely extraordinary. And some of the things that you were mentioning here that, for me, it kind of puts it all together and wraps it up in a real nice bow
Cool.
is the way we talk about, and they're not just catchphrases, and they're not metaphors either. I mean,
Mm,
I'm taking the energy in which you're feeding me, Kyle, okay, as an electrical current. Okay, we talk about vibrations, vibrational frequency. We're talking about voltage, as you
mm,
mentioned, right? We're talking about energy levels, and we're talking about flow and that sort of thing. And as you're explaining this, I'm thinking about if someone was able to do, I can't remember what it's called, a brain scan, and you see neurons firing, right?
sure.
And it almost looks like I kind of equate it to like if I'm looking off, well, I'm in North Texas. So if I look off in the North Texas sky at night and it's cloudy, and off in the far distance are flickers of lightning, right? And the split seconds in which they flicker, you see, silhouettes of clouds, but you see also the shape of the lightning bolt off in the distance. And so these brain neurons firing off, depending on how the brain is stimulated and what it's going through, to me, I find that absolutely fascinating. To me, that kind of aligns with the voltage and the vibrational frequency and the flow and the energy that we are talking about here.
Hmm.
And the way you so eloquently put it in neuroscience scientific terms, very clear for the reader to or for the listener to interpret. So again, to me, that is it's just so spot on, and it's another element of uh, the human nervous system is built and put together that I have always been fascinated to learn more about because it does have an impact on how we interact with the world, and then how we receive that stimuli has an impact on what fires in our brains and all that sort of stuff. So
100%.
so
Yeah.
whether it's something that smells sweet to us, something, or maybe what we hear, we may hear music that is pleasant. We may hear a noise that annoys us, and then that sort of thing. So
Right.
just, and I know I'm speaking in the most elemental of terms and from a layman's standpoint, but I'm thinking, all of that is connected
Hmm.
in a big way. And one other thing I wanted to kind of touch on is not from your experience and journey, but from how you work with your clients. Okay. Everything that you mentioned there in terms of how we think about our energy and the things that we do with our energy. You mentioned it before. The 260 some odd mental or thought decisions we make every day. Okay. And something as simple as what we're going to eat or what we're
Right.
going to wear,
Right.
that takes a lot of brain injury, a lot of thought energy, and so forth. And so, in teaching your clients the sensitivity of this and what it means and how important it is, I would imagine that you teach them also how to be diligent and making right decisions in how to expend your energy in
Hmm.
areas that serves you, that serves those around you.
Hmm.
And what type of mindset shift that does it take, say, in working with a client coming from, I don't know, addiction, or coming from
Yeah.
codependency, you know,
Yeah.
um, because the priorities are different in that state. And
Right.
when you're working with them, I can't help but think there's a degree of things that you have to, with them, unlearn or unthink before you can get to the transformative stuff. Can you kind of break that down for us? Sorry for the long
Absolutely.
question, but I wanted
No,
to.
you're good. No, I love the context. I mean, this is what I love about neuroscience. Like, if we don't have context, one of my favorite things that I learned in regenerative agriculture, shout out to Gabe Brown. One of the greatest things that I ever learned is that if you don't have the context, don't make the mess. So you building out context just for the conversation allows this to actually be expanded for people to really kind of seep into this. It when you sit down with one person, you can usually tell, especially if you've been doing this for a consistent amount of time, whether it's one to
Yeah.
one of any kind, you can really tell if something's off, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and the biggest thing that I've learned is the direct connection and the fulfillment that you get in life is the relationships that you have. So
Yes.
to have that fulfillment in those relationships, i.e., whether it's one to one or a group setting, you have to ask phenomenal questions. And the mindset that people have to come to this, they have to have a radical sense of acceptance and honesty for themselves. And they just have to be all in on the process. Because if you or anybody else were to work with me, the first thing that I would ask is, okay, well, are you tired of the way that you are? Because if you were coming to sit with me one to one to work on with me, you wouldn't be here if you didn't have something that you wanted to fix, right?
Right. Right.
So that mindset is really being about, it's not desperation, it's really about, it's not even soul retrieval either, it's really just being about, I'm tired of living this way. I'm
Yes.
tired of not having the energy, which is the precursor to consciousness. Like, consciousness in itself is fundamental. The precursor to consciousness is energy, because there has to be amplitude. So
Yes.
now, if we understand the very simple terms of energy is everything, you can tell if somebody's energy is off, right? And then as soon as you see that, we just have to do the simple diagnostics through the 7 dynamics of health that we go through. What is the physical? What is the mental? What is the spiritual? What is the emotional? What are your relationships looking like? That's
Yeah.
massive. And then on
Yeah.
top of it, what is your occupational and financial? Like, and then most importantly, in my humble opinion, because you were talking about the things that we can hear and smell kind of get us elated to a certain aspect or can turn us off, your environmental dynamic. We have to really look at those diagnostics. And 7 is just that beautiful number of empowerment, right? So if you
Right.
really can look at those diagnostics and somebody is like, cool, I'm willing to put this down so I can get to that next level. That's
Yeah.
just the simple mindset you have to shift, because you got to shift that first, because then you can get into here.
Yeah.
Because when you can get into the heart has 1,000 times more of a frequency amplitude than anything that emits from the brain.
Right.
And this is the only thing that shifts, right? Once you shift this and get into this,
Yep.
then it's really getting into work. And what I love about transformation is it's got a process. Usually there has to be an awareness point. We teach the 4 levels of awareness so people can understand that. Then you
Right.
have to lay down your intention of why you're doing it. And
Mhm.
then lo and behold, anybody that's obviously listening to this and have had their own life experience, once you lay down an intention, the world, nature as a whole, or God is going to test you with your conviction of faith. things
100%.
things are going to start falling apart. People are going to
Yeah.
start leaving your life. You may lose your job.
Yep.
Like, though the people that have the willingness to be like, okay, all this stuff, all these plates that I'm spinning, all these masks that I'm wearing have to come off so I
Right.
can live on that other side.
Right.
That is the essential conviction that you need to make it work. It's not just a commitment. It's literally a devotion to that conviction. So you can go beyond all senses, because stuff is going to get rocky at first. It's not
Yeah.
super peachy keen once you decide to change your life right away.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And another thing I guess that would be conceivable is getting on the other side of that you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
Things will fall apart. People will leave you. You may lose your job. You may lose your house or have a
Right.
bad event take place. All part of that process, and that's the testing, right? That God puts us
Yes.
through. And to get on the other side of that process,
Mhm.
while we need to remove ourselves from the victim position and the position of woe is me, this is happening to me, and get on the other side of how free we
Beautifully said.
feel. On the other side, we're free of this. We're putting those plates down. They're crashing down. Guess what? I'm at peace because I don't have to waste energy on keeping those plates
Mhm.
spinning. I've found a new purpose in life. I know the true identity of who I am and who
Mhm.
God has made me to be, and so To me, to get on that other side, where a lot of people who aren't there yet, it may feel counterintuitive to them, but
Absolutely.
when they get there, they're like, I can't believe the weight
Yeah.
that's been lifted off my
Yes.
shoulders. My gosh. I mean,
Beautifully
and
said.
and that's got to be a liberating feeling, I would imagine. Have you had things like that or other benefits and other facets of your clients' lives that they've shared with you
Oh,
having reached that point?
dude, I mean, my whole identity got shifted. I can
Mm,
use myself as an entire foundation. I mean, like we're talking substance use from
yeah.
for at least 2 decades,
Oh,
and
wow.
like substance abuse disorder for at least 11. Like you can't tell
Wow.
me, that it's not possible if you just let go of the identity. And one of my favorite things, this has actually happened recently, today. To be exact, this is how powerful this stuff is.
Yeah.
A lot of the manifestations and prayers that I do are in water, right? So I was taking a
Yeah.
bath earlier today, and
Yeah.
I was just feeling called, just being like, God, just reach out and connect, with these people. Just thank you for protecting the people that have protected me to get to that place.
Yeah.
And one of my friends reached out to me. It was just like a long list of just like her devotion, to her path with Christ. And I was just like, yo, this was literally within 5 minutes. So it's like when you start to, and that's just like a simple thing that happens almost on the daily basis. But
Yeah.
our process is called education to liberation, because you got to get educated, you got to take action. And once you get into the trench work, and this is the reason why we have a group setting too, and my team is phenomenal human beings. But once you get through that and you can show up on a consistent basis, we have benchmarks through neurochemistry and also just through the neuroscience and the data points that can tell you if you can get to this point and you
Yeah.
can devote yourself for this amount of time, we can ensure you what this is going to look like. So there is almost predictable results. So the best part about seeing this, I've seen people get off drugs, off medications. I've seen people literally start walking again.
Wow.
There's so many. I've seen people literally go from absolutely nothing to literally making 6+ figures in the span of 6 months.
Yeah.
It's just if you are convicted, right, and you are going to follow through, and literally you just go by our 4 guidelines, super, super simple, is
Yeah.
have fun because things are received in a playful state, have that
Yep.
spirit of a child, but then also the maturation of who you are as a man or woman.
Right.
Literally follow our instructions. If you just do what we say and just follow through with it, you're solid. Let go. We teach you how to do that. That's the surrender point, is the hardest for
Right.
people.
Yes.
And then the fourth is just focus, because if you don't have focus, you don't have anything truly,
Yeah.
right? You don't have health, you don't have wealth, you have nothing, right?
Right.
So
Right.
the beauty in that is not only just seeing that every single day, but I also got to test that when I got my brain injury when I was diagnosed in December of 2023. That was my initiation and test of faith with God, being like, hey, we built you out. We, right, talking about myself and God
Yeah.
within that
Yeah.
co-creation,
Yeah.
built this $2.2 million evaluated company. And now I'm about to take it all away from you
Mm.
because you fundamentally can't perform the same way. So now I'm going to strip you naked and I'm going to ask you to trust in everything that I'm doing. And here's all the frameworks that you built. Can you abide by that to get you back? And a lot of people now that I talk to, they can never tell that I had literally a life-threatening brain injury 2 years ago. I can't even tell. So it's really
Incredible.
about it is,
Wow.
man. It's a miracle beyond belief, and I'm
Yeah.
just a testament of God's grace and willingness to move through me. But it is beyond possible. It's not only that we have testimonials after testimonials, but I've seen miracles happen when you have conviction. When you have convictions, miracles literally are a byproduct of nature. It's just going to happen if you can stick through it. It's a little challenge at first, but then once you get that rhythm and it's methodical, you
Yeah.
just let things pour into your lap. It's beautiful.
Wow. And let me get this straight. You said earlier that your team, you have the tools and the methods to, from an analytical standpoint, detect if someone is at a certain point or reaches a certain point where they are convicted and they are all in
Yes.
to attain a certain level or reach a certain goal.
Mhm.
You can tell by those tools and methods and analytics, you know, what they are capable of, that they are capable of reaching it, or I guess how they would even respond if a challenge or an unfortunate event is thrown at them, which is
Mm,
on that path, on that road, right? So, I mean, you can actually give some indication of their
absolutely.
success rate? That's
Absolutely. So the fun part, and sorry to cut you off.
no,
I
no,
get
no, that's
really, really
okay.
excited about
This
this,
is
but
incredible. Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
the fun part is like there's four ways that our brains postulate for temporal satisfaction. And one of those is hedonic adaptation. Basically, it's your habit to neurochemistry timeline. So how
Okay,
long your habits have affected your neurochemistry. And it
okay.
takes on average about 6 months. And this is where miracles and belief really come into play, because you can expedite this really quickly. But on average, it takes 6 months, just a half a year, if you fully devote and love yourself.
Yeah,
Right. That's on average. We don't work with average people. Most of these people do this in 90 days, 120 days. So about 4 months.
yeah,
But on average, if you slip up, because you got to give yourself some grace just in case, because it's not like you're going to go to the gym like right off the bat and you're going to work out six days out of the week without
right.
feeling completely. It's not possible.
No,
But if you're convicted and you have a simple structure, it takes 66 days for neural pathways to embed a brand new habit. That's actually the science based out of, the College of London. It's not this 21 days. It's not, those
yeah,
are all
yeah.
just throwing stuff out there. The critical science, we use a faith-based approach plus the unifying language of science that's not corrupted.
Wow,
Right.
I
So
love
we
the
want to,
blend.
that's it. So now
Yeah,
you can understand what it means to truly walk, not only just within that faith. And this is super, super, super neuroscience forward, because you don't want to be dogmatic. We're not promoting separatism specifically just because of
no,
your belief system. Everything is saying the law of correspondence says as within, so without, right? So if you're convicted in pursuing what is within, right, that allows you to start to see, okay, well, if we have analytical benchmarks, okay, where am I going to be at in 66 days? That's 9 weeks.
yeah,
How much can I sit down with myself, give myself 20 seconds of courage to go through any uncomfortability, sit down and go through 15 to 22 minutes of just our recorded information, and really start to reset the dials for your neurochemistry, because that's really planting the seed. And as you reap,
mm,
you sow. As you know, it's very,
yeah,
very simple,
yeah,
right? So the beauty and just the benchmarks and the analytics is that we can tell if you're convicted, you will do it. But we can also tell just from an energy signature if you're just a talker, if you get really, really hyped up and really
right, right.
animated in we can really tell that you're not going to do anything.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So the biggest thing for us is just making sure that we have a proper standard for people to feel supported in this process. And that's the reason why we have group calls. Literally, my team is doing a call right now. And
wow,
it's to show that if you show up and you keep accountable, you are going to stay on that consistency. And commitment is usually just a verbal or a physical action once, right? That's usually
right.
what people say. I will do this once. A conviction says, this is who I am, right? I am going to become this,
Much
period.
deeper, much deeper.
100%.
Yeah,
You can feel the difference.
yes,
100%. Yep.
yes, man. And at the root of all this, right? There has to be a plan.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, because like you said, no one's gonna all of a sudden wake up after never going to the gym and say, I'm gonna spend 2 hours at the gym every day for 5 days a week,
Right.
and that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. Not only is it not realistic, it's not sustainable, right? So you have to have a plan
Mhm.
that you grow and gradually kind of gravitate to over time. That kind of takes you from one level to the next, to the next, to the next.
And
That
therefore
makes
and therefore that is that 6-month benchmark, right?
yes,
Because the
yes,
other yeah, and I didn't even allude to this, so my
mhm,
apologies to your listeners, but you also the other 3 aspects of temporal satisfaction is you have boredom, you have rumination, right? You have the hedonic adaptation, and then you also have the novelty, right?
okay,
So when you start to look at these things, so okay, well, I'm only ruminating on things that are stuck within my being, right? So if we have the process, which we teach within our level 3 clearings called subconscious dynamics, you're
Right.
clearing out. So there's free space for that liberation to not be a ruminating factor. And if you're having a problem with boredom, it's like, cool, we got to teach you how to sit with that so you can integrate all the challenges your nervous system is propensitated to get out of itself, right? Yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
really simple instructive process,
Yes.
but it's definitely not easy at first. But once you get rhythmically and methodically into it, it becomes nothing but peace. That's why I love what you were saying earlier, where you're talking about that peace being one of the 4 highest oscillations from an emotional standpoint. That's when you're starting to really receive life and its richness.
Yeah, and it's a true authentic feeling of that peace. I mean, as you were saying that, man, I was getting chills right down my arm because I'm thinking, you know, the it's just I had a thought and then I lost it. I was that excited about it. My apologies.
You're good. No
But
worries.
but yeah, the commitment behind it, right? I mean, that you have to you have to have that, and you can tell in those, and like you said, with the methods you have for, you know, whether it's in someone's energy, you can kind of tell if, you know, they're kind of just full of talk and stuff. So
Right.
yeah, and
I was there. I was there for much of my life until
you
I
were
was
there.
just like, yeah, oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah. You
yeah.
cannot be an addict and not be.
No. Well, yeah, that's truth, right? I mean, and
Mhm.
yeah, and so I guess to a degree that would be kind of natural. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's layers to that acceptance. And so, you know, I guess I've never been an addict, but one would, I guess, accept at face value and say, okay, I'm in, you know,
Mhm.
and then, you know, they say they're in and say they're in. And then, you know, the one temptation, boom, you know, it's like a
Right.
relapse. And then,
Absolutely.
yeah. And then from there, you know, it kind of, each time you repeat, and more you learn, you know, then all of a sudden, boom, that light bulb comes on, and it's like, wait, this is real.
Yeah.
This is real. And I'm not talking about switching it to a habit. I'm talking about redefining and rediscovering who I am.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
transformed by the renewal of your mind, man. That's it.
Transformed by the renewal of your mind. I love it. And so, Kyle, on the flip side of this, if you can just kind of briefly describe for us, I'm thinking spiritual bypassing is where you teach a method or teach neuroscience or how the body works or mind works without including the spiritual element. Is that spiritual
Yes.
bypassing, or can you break that
Yeah.
more down?
I mean, that is a very interesting question. The one thing that we like to do as human beings with our rational mind is lie.
Yeah.
Right. We
Yeah.
love to come up and concoct excuses
Yeah.
to get us out of specific scenarios. So, beautiful process from some neuroscientists in the early 90s. This is originated out of Princeton originally. It was called first impression language. So,
Yeah.
first impression language essentially says if you go to the heart space, keep your attention here, and you ask a question or any information is presented to you, either in a form of question or
Mhm.
just presented to you in the form of a statement of such, within a tenth of a second to 7 seconds, this response will come first, which is the truth, because this heart fundamentally cannot lie. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you're going through. This space, once this is activated with focus, it
Yeah.
cannot lie. And then once you get outside of that window of time, you start getting into your rational mind. And this is where all the spiritual Gupta and all the woo-woo stuff come out, because people start to accentuate an inauthentic aspect of their public persona, mind you, their mask,
Right.
of what they're not actually doing privately. So the big thing about the spiritual bypassing, it's not just really spiritual, it's just bypassing in general. You're just not telling the truth.
Right.
Right. So when
Right.
you start telling the truth, like I had to, because as you can imagine, an addiction, an addictive mindset, and a lie identity literally is built on nothing but lies. That's why it's called
Right.
a lie identity. So
Mhm.
when you're masquerading around and you're using false coping mechanisms just to feel safe, you start lying to the world. So for me, when I started looking into the research, I was like, the performance goes away.
Yeah.
I just get to go to the straight and narrow. This is the seat of the soul right here, the activator of life.
Yeah.
Go here.
Yeah.
This is what allows us to love people. This is what allows us to connect with people.
Mhm.
Like if go here and ask the questions, you get the truth, whether it's painful or not. Most of the
Right.
times when you're going through a process of revival, essentially, or a reinvention or a restart or a reset, however you want to say it,
Yeah.
that truth is going to be painful, but that pain is there for the pavement to your purpose. Simple.
Got it. And you know what? That I just regained my thought. I'm sorry.
Yeah, perfect, beautiful.
But that what that you mentioned there helped me regain my thought.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that, because yeah, it is going to be hurtful. It is going to be painful, but it's all part of a process. Like you said, there's a process that goes through. One
Mhm.
thing that you said that got the chills down my arm, okay, was talking about how this is all a process. And when you introduce the element or concept of boredom, right?
Mm,
Boredom.
mm,
You're not talking about, I'm almost thinking like, man, like, I don't know, like David and Goliath, right?
sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're not running away from it.
Mm,
You say that you have your clients
yep.
sit in it, embrace it,
Mhm.
process it, and you're going towards it. So if boredom's the Goliath and we're David, we're running towards
Yeah, full
boredom
slingshot, baby.
with the slingshot,
Dude,
100%.
the one dude,
Yeah,
I love this so much, and I had to butt in on this
yeah,
because
yeah,
this is the ultimate truth. When you get to see somebody come back, have a sense of spiritual revival or
yeah.
reinvention, renewal, whatever,
Mhm.
flavor that you want to add to your process of completely coming anew, right?
Yeah,
Being reborn again, essentially,
right.
is I had to realize that I was like, I am so caught up and so magnetized by substances because I'm bored. And
Yeah.
it's not because I'm bored, it's because I am boring. And then
Mm,
I was like, oh, that cut deep. Then I was like, okay, well, what would make me not boring for me to do that? And I was like, I got to connect and I have to serve people. And then when that started happening, then everything started to connect everything. And the connection is true antidote to addiction. Let's just be honest, right?
yeah, yeah,
And once you start to connect that and then you live in that purpose, these things, these magnetize, this is the reason why you can believe in these massive miracles that just happen where poof, people are just over. They're just done with whatever's ailing them. And that
right.
was exactly what happened to me. I was blessed with a deliverance prayer,
Mhm.
right? On one of my birthdays, and just poof, all of it just went away, right? All
Nice.
of it went in. The biochemical stuff on the back end wasn't, very comfortable to deal with because
Right,
you still got to
right.
deal with those residuals. But the craving, the desire, the attachment, the longing, the desire to want to consume
Yeah.
just vanished, just gone.
Incredible. And then
Yep,
from there, moving forward, all you have to deal with is residuals,
exactly.
and they fade
Yep.
away over time.
Yes, they do. And that's the
Yeah,
neural network stuff. And we teach that
yeah,
within our curriculum so you can understand complexes,
yeah,
neurological associations, and
yeah,
they dissipate. They really do. And they can, and this is, and I say this with a bold statement, but also conviction in my heart, they
yeah.
can be permanently erased from your identity when you just do it properly.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. I said this to another guest in another conversation just recently, but and I'm sure you've heard this phrase before too, but man, it's incredible how much an idle mind can be the devil's workshop.
Yo, absolutely. Oh man.
Uh,
If you really think about it, I mean,
yeah,
that's the devil's playground.
it really is.
That is the devil's
Yeah,
playground. If you are sitting in this postulation of I don't know what to do, I'm feeling misdirect. I mean, like
yeah,
that stronghold, because like I said, I mean, the devil is alive, but if it has a foothold, if it gets a foothold, it will have a stronghold, and that's the creeping in from the outside influences, and that just begets on top of what's already programmed you on you as a child,
yeah,
right? So then you're dealing with like a double-edged sword at that point. So the reason why we really focus on that foundational pieces is because you are just an example of the choices that you consistently make based off of a precursor of an environmental situation consistently over time when you were a child. So it's like I love what you're saying there because I couldn't agree more. I'm like, if you are not driven by becoming better, the best version of yourself. And I always don't really like saying that, but it's just like, if you are driven to become the highest version of yourself, meet most high in that authenticated notion, because, you know, you are just an image of Christ in itself, right? God's spitting image, essentially. Like, that is the purpose that will keep you away from, you know, those things that are pulling you, you know, into those lower densities, which ultimately breed into disease and any dysfunction and on any level.
Without a doubt, I completely agree, Kyle. And you know, it's like, it's like, wow. Again, so excited. Had the thought, and then I lost it. But yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, it align. Okay, now I got it back. Sorry,
There we
I'm
go,
so excited
man.
about it. You know that
I get it, man.
and you can tell my questions are unscripted because I feed off energy. Okay, and so
Same.
the energy in which you're feeding me and how you're explaining things to me, that manifests questions, so that we can keep in the same flow of dialogue, right? From what you're saying, and then vice versa. So what I was going to say was, that just explains to me, Kyle, that your company is completely holistic. You don't leave a stone unturned, because, as I mentioned, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And you know how I've been subject to that many times in my life and continue to be challenged by that, as well as everyone else in this world. I'm sure, you know, we all fall short. Your company, you don't turn your back to that, because we just talked about what? Boredom.
Right.
Talked about boredom. You have a client that's bored. You don't let them sit and stew in that boredom as unattended, right? No, you let them sit in it and process with the proper guidance, the proper direction, you know, so it doesn't, so the foothold doesn't come in, is what I'm thinking that you do. Is that accurate? Or
Absolutely. Well, the beauty, like, just in our school aspect, because we're the first school and only school dedicated to flow for post-traumatic growth, right? So the notion for post-traumatic stress is we don't want to focus on the stress, we want to focus on the growth, right? So when we start to realize that the stress components that come into our daily life, because we can't forget our humanness. Once we forget our humanness, that's when we start creating the, you know, malevolence in the world. But when we sit in that notion and we can allow ourselves the uncomfortabilities, because the propensities aren't moving us towards things that we are programmed to, then we can start to understand actually how to transmute energy for a higher good, right? So moving lower density emotions to a higher sense, because you want to get into here before you transcend even deeper. The big thing about working with individuals is allowing them to just be transparent with where they are, so they can actually start to build out a vision for who they're becoming, right? And then you get to start to really, I mean, this is the beautiful part about just the service and notion of working with individuals, is that when you can start to see them, their lights come on, like the light bulbs click on, then it's like when we get into the creative process. Now, what kind of deeper foundations, what kind of deeper roots do you want to lay down? Because as you uproot, you just replace. We can't just do the state change. Like, if we just did state change and we were just like, I mean, you can go on YouTube and you can watch a meditation and you can change your state. It's not hard. But when you work in this capacity, we want to utilize the law of consciousness that says an imprint paired with your associated feeling now becomes your identity. So we don't want just to take it out. We want to also feed you what the fuel is specifically for your spirit to move forward. And that's what I love about just the process of flow for post-traumatic growth, is you're starting to see trauma, like, or whatever that is, in metabolic terms. There's over 30 different definitions of what that is scientifically. But one of my favorites is you're just in an egoic mind. If you're in your egoic mind, that just means you could be tired. When you're tired, you're in your egoic mind, so therefore you're in a trauma state, right? Very fascinating when people break that down. We're teaching on a consistency basis. If you have flow, if you can accentuate flow, and you can properly recover neurochemically all of the stuff from the outside world, right? You know, be in the world, not of it, right? It's that notion, and that stuff can't attract you. because you're not focused on it. You're so dialed into flow, and flow is that full immersion in the totality of your experience.
100%. I
Yeah,
mean, to be in a flow state is
incredible. It's a
it's
beautiful thing.
incredible,
Yeah,
and I mean, your words and how you describe it has been the most articulate that I've heard in a long time. I just know when I feel it, when I feel that
yeah.
flow state, right?
Mhm.
It's just some people call it in the zone, or however you want to place it.
100%.
But
Yeah,
yeah, that flow state is absolutely tremendous, and it's life changing in a big way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Kyle, a couple closing questions I have for
Sure.
you. The first one is, um, okay, you have mind, body, and spirit.
Mhm.
Okay. And I believe there is a human optimization when it comes to aligning in those. So, with human optimization, in a nutshell, is human optimization the same for everyone, or is it different for each person based on their situation?
Yeah. Fantastic notion behind that question is how we built out things in phases. So if somebody is coming to work with us and they're obviously going through, whether it's a diagnosis or they're going through some
Mhm.
dis-ease, essentially, I don't actually believe in the definition of disease because biblically it just says that there's
Yes,
no
geez, I
disease.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like, if you're not at ease, right, we have to
yeah,
regenerate. We have to recharge who you are.
yes,
Once you recharge, right, then you can build. So
yeah,
regeneration is that first phase, right, which is, you can call it the healing phase, essentially.
mhm,
Then the second phase, right, you have a building phase. You're starting to build a deeper foundation on what you're recharging. And
right,
then you have the expansion phase. The expansion phase for me is always going to be how much energy do I have so I can be in service,
yeah,
right? So utilizing just my scenario that I had a couple years ago when I had a brain injury, I had to go immediately into the healing phase. Like we can't build on top of that foundation because with
right,
a brain injury, anatomically, you're on quicksand. A lot of people don't realize the brain injury itself, a near severance of your medial prefrontal cortex is like your brain going through a torn Achilles. It's like the equivalent of your brain going through a torn Achilles.
mm,
Right? So if you can't walk, right, with a torn
yeah,
Achilles, imagine how your thought process is when you're going through that.
right, right.
Now, you don't want to build on that foundation,
No,
not
you
at all.
don't.
So
No,
you recharge, you rebuild, you regenerate, then you build on top of that,
yeah,
and then you get to expand. So it's very subjective. And that's the one thing. Nature in itself is the only objective thing. Everybody else who is a subject, right, as a human
yep,
being, they
yep,
have their subjective and perspective definitions and
sure,
experiences, right? So
yeah,
it really depends on where they're at. Because some people, most of my one-to-one clientels, they're really high achievers. They're looking to hit that extra, monthly income. I work with
yeah,
people who are deeper into that notion,
yeah,
and more of our communal offer is there to support people that are just getting started. So because some people need their hand held,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right. And that's the beautiful part about this is like, if you're willing to sit with all angles of people and you have a standard of understanding that, you can see people where they're at, and then you can craft something specifically for them so they can see themselves through. And that's how you build the confidence and also their courage to have that conviction.
yeah.
Right. And that's the beautiful part. So everything is very, very personalized to the individual.
Gotcha. Very personalized, and that's the way it should be because we're all
Absolutely.
snowflakes, right? No two are alike.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No two are alike. So Kyle, how can the listeners learn more about your great work, connect with you, follow you?
Cool.
How can they get to learn more about Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, just reach out. Kyle
Yeah.
Anthony Trautmann on Facebook is my main go-to. We kind of really pulled back from everything on social media the last couple of years, just so I could kind of get my being back, essentially,
Yeah, yeah.
and grace to God came back even stronger and more
Oh, that's wonderful.
more connected than ever, which I'm very thankful for. But
Yes.
I'm very privy to connect via Messenger.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, if you want to look at anything that I have on Instagram, you can go to Trautmann, or you can go at High Vibe Holonomics. That's just kind of where we're at specifically from a syndication standpoint from our private organization. But yeah, just reach out specifically. I'm very, very personable. The one thing that I've been very thankful on the returning aspect after having a brain injury is how deep it means to connect with people again. Right. Because when you're in that space, when you're kind of by yourself and you're like, ah, man, this is going to be next level. Like, that's my favorite thing to do is to love people. So just reach out and I can connect with any questions. And I love questions because I always firmly believe your life is in direct reflection of the quality of your questions. So
it completely is. We are certainly in alignment with that. Kyle, Anthony Trautmann, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for just sharing your amazing insights for the listeners' benefit. I'm very grateful for connecting with you, and I hope we can bring you back on the show sometime in the near future.
That'd be awesome, man. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Oh yeah, no, my pleasure. We reciprocate, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, you may think this at times, but in your struggles and adversities, you're never alone. And hope is always around the corner. I humbly ask that you please share this show with someone you know, someone you love who needs motivation, inspiration, and support. The Road to Rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life. And it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.